Hello, I'm Peter.
And I'm Harry.
And this is Man Up,
Man Down.
the podcast where we talk about growing up in the 21st century as a young person
Our experiences with mental health.
and the things that we have to go through as young people in this modern day and age.
We'll be discussing several topics over the course of, I think, we're going
About 8 weeks.
about 8 weeks we're looking at. And the idea is that we draw our own conclusions, I guess, at the end of each topic that we discuss, kind of figure out for ourselves. We're learning, aren't we, whilst we're doing this?
So, Harry, episode 4. How's your week been?
Episode 4. I've had a good week, thank you, mate. Yourself?
Very good. Yeah, not bad. Met Christopher Eccleston at a convention. Been going gym a lot.
Good to hear. How's your sleeping pattern been?
Not as good as it has been. I've been making up at like 8 or 9 o'clock rather than 6 or 7, which I do want to get back to that because, yeah, you have a more productive day when you get up early. But apart from that, all good. Yeah, all good. Had quite a few productive days.
That's good to hear.
Had lots of Costas. I like Costa.
I'm eating more now, which is good, actually.
But you don't put on weight so easily, do you?
I don't know. I've got quite high metabolism, so obviously, because I'm back at the gym now as well, my goal is, I think yours was to lose a bit of weight, wasn't it? Mine's to gain, so
yeah,
I do have to eat quite a lot.
We've got just before we introduce our special guest, we have got a comment from one of our listeners.
Ah, yes,
one of our only listeners, from Adrian. He said, "Great chat and analysis, guys. Keep it going, and thanks for tackling these subjects." And that was in response to the first podcast we did about grief. So yeah, thanks for listening, Adrian. And anybody else, if you want to leave a comment or let us know you're listening, it's always good. It motivates us to record more of these if we know people listening.
Absolutely, always appreciated.
Yeah. So let's let our special guest introduce themselves, and while we're talking to them today about their chosen specialist subject.
Hello there, my name is Sonny, Huddart, and today we're going to talk about mental health, its relation to media, and how it can impact us for better and worse.
Yeah, and we should probably start by saying how we know you. So I guess me and Harry both know you from school, but we kind of knew you a little bit before then in our own ways. I knew you from Cubs and Scouts and camping trips, and famous moment was that you had a Doctor Who book that I had, and I accused you of stealing mine, but you actually had your own copy of it. So there's that. And Harry, how do you know?
Yes, my earliest memory was in primary school. In the earliest years, we were. I can't recall if we were in many classes, but I remember it was college, I think, where we reconnected, and of course through film.
Yeah.
Me doing some acting roles. So yeah, that was really good. So today's topic, I think we've already addressed as media.
Yeah. So should we start with what's one piece of media that's impacted you positively? I would say especially from an early age, because for me it's Doctor Who. I'm a big fan of Doctor Who, and
really
not mentioned it. And I think part of it is because I first watched it when I was a kid. I think it's had a big influence on my career and my life. On if I've had a bad day at work or a bad day wherever I've been, I can stick an episode of Doctor Who on, it just cheers me up instantly. So do you guys have something like that in the same sense? I know you're a big fan of football, Harry. Maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just very quickly, I want to say it's a good thing. I think that we're going to be reflecting, I think, a lot more on this podcast on the positives surrounding media and how it can impact our mental health, rather than, because of course we know there's a lot of negativity surrounding media, especially in the online world and everything, which we've kind of highlighted a bit in the previous podcasts. So yeah, for me, football has been my earliest memory, I'd say.
You not played it for a while, though, have you?
No, consequently, no. I've got a long-term knee injury, but I began. My dad introduced me at a young age. I started watching it on the telly, watching obviously England. I know it's the World Cup now, which is brilliant. It's been great for me. Yeah, so I think football was the earliest memory I have. It's where I formed a lot of my friendships that I've still got today, and I'd say it's had a very positive impact on my childhood. A lot of the nostalgia I reflect back on surrounds, playing for my local team and that. Again, with friends that I've got of today. And that, like I say, all stemmed from media, from watching it on the television. So, TV, I guess, was my earliest memory, if you like. What about yourself, Sonny?
I think it was my first experience and first positive experience of, say, film. Because film is what I studied in university, and it's what I want to do when I'm older, make my own films, etc. There was a film that we got showed in RV called Gattaca.
Finding Nemo. Oh, Gattaca, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thanks for the intrusion. So Gattaca is a 1990s film, and it's about how irrelevant of the adversities that can come in life and prevent you from getting your dreams, you can defeat them and you can get where you want, but you just need that determination, to get to that point. And I took that valuable lesson away, because in school they teach you, all this information, but they don't really teach you how to necessarily use it, or they don't necessarily motivate you. Because we'll all say this, or maybe someone, but if you reflect on school, or when you're in school, you hate school. You just can't wait. You can't wait to grow older. But then when you are older, you're like, oh damn, it was actually a decent experience. But I think I don't know. I feel like we should be more encouraged to learn and encouraged to then use that information, and be more motivated to go further in life. And I guess that's what the film did for me.
Do you feel that that's kind of just because you related to it? Do you think it's the whole point of relating to something in media is the most important thing?
Yeah, I think films can be any genre, and if they have that human element, you'll be able to relate to it. Whether that be, say for example, Harry Potter. He was an orphan child, bit of an outcast. And there's relatability elements to that, especially with his relationship with his
It's your way into a fantastical world, isn't it? It's like with Doctor Who, you always see it through the companion's eyes, because it's a relatable way of getting used to the crazy sci-fi concepts.
Yeah, because if you saw it entirely through the Doctor's point of view in the show, I don't think it'd be that good. That's why you need the human companion to show you how crazy this is, but also how wonderful it is. And it also shows you how people deal with death differently. And that's why I think film, TV, etc. excels where other media don't.
But also because, and I know we spoke a lot about it in the Grief podcast about trying to get over someone who's died. But one thing I did when my grandma died was for about a week after, I didn't really want to watch any Doctor Who, because I thought I'd associate it with my grandma dying, so I kind of held off watching it for about a week or two. But the first episode I watched after she died was Heaven Sent, because it was during lockdown and they were doing all the lockdown watch-along things. And that's a really good episode of dealing with grief.
The whole episode, Heaven Sent, is about dealing with grief and how it's like going around and around in a circle without escaping it.
Yeah.
And it's about accepting the grief. Okay, the following episode, how Ben kind of went back on the concept in a way. It's not necessarily a bad episode. It's just doesn't necessarily follow with what the previous episode was trying to get across.
But I suppose what I'm trying to say is that I use that episode in some ways to deal with my own emotions of grief through seeing a role model of mine, which is the Doctor, dealing with grief in his own way. I'm relating to that, I guess.
Yeah, because the thing is, we're all human at the end of the day. Okay, the Doctor isn't, but he's presented as human.
Yeah. There's human emotions and human sensibilities.
Yeah, and that's why he's always been connected to Earth, I guess. And yeah, just to see someone on the screen is going through a similar experience, but in a more elaborate sense, from a thematical point of view. It's quite reassuring, I guess.
Yeah.
To know that you're not alone in this, in this endeavour, this tumultuous time, of your life.
That's the great thing. Yeah, it's the great thing, isn't it? Really, with when you see a character in a book or a film, you can relate them to yourself, can't you? And your own experiences, your own situations that you might be currently going through or have gone through in the past.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's it's good.
Do you have any role models that you do kind of relate to a lot in terms of their experiences? I know so much maybe not media related, or maybe it is, but
I would say the actor Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Because I know in his personal life that he's gone through a lot of depression. He was on.
I do see a lot of you in him.
Yeah. Because I think that's fair. Because I think he uses. He's brilliant at it. We all know. But he uses humour to kind of bypass a lot of emotion and a lot of darkness in his life. And I guess that's kind of representative of my nature as well, and my passion for acting and that.
And use comedy to.
Yeah, it's kind of like sometimes I don't mind sharing. It's kind of like perhaps I'm acting in general life. Yeah, just like without being on a film set, I might be acting regardless. Just to make myself feel a bit better. But I think we do naturally as humans. We look towards, because comedy is kind of the great. That's why, personally, I don't. I like watching a lot of dark humour sometimes, because I think if you can laugh at stuff that's quite dark, and that, you know, it kind of it helps. Do you know what I mean? It's a method of escapism and distraction, I think, a lot of the times, comedy. So I'd say, and also he's a phenomenal actor as well. A lot of my earliest memories of films, watching, you know, The Mask and Ace Ventura and all these great films is
Truman Show.
It's kind of what got Dumb and Dumber and all these great films. It's what got me into this kind of slapstick comedy style acting and stuff.
I'd say with me, Christopher Eccleston, obviously. Big fan of Christopher Eccleston, and I think I've read his autobiography, and a lot of that's about his own mental health as a man. And I think it has inspired a lot of what I've done with the podcast and the walk and stuff. I think he's spoken very candidly about like growing up as, you know, working class northerner in the 70s and 80s and stuff, and the 60s. So I think that plays, you know, I think there's a certain relatability with that. And yeah, he's had eating disorders, and he's had bad mental health bouts himself. So there's a lot of things that you could relate to.
He's another great actor as well, isn't he?
And even with the characters he plays, I mean, a lot of the time he plays quite dark characters, but when he played the Doctor, he played someone who's so full of life, so full of vim and vigour and enthusiasm and you know, encouragement of everyone. And I like to think a bit of that's brushed onto me. I think I've got quite a cheery personality, or I try to anyway.
I'm really intrigued to know Sonny's role model, so of course I'll go into that now, but I will say, on the subject of Eccleston, and he kind of related a lot to your film project that I do want to talk about after. So for now, however, Sonny, your role model.
I've been thinking about it for like the past 2-3 minutes, however long it's been, and at the moment I cannot name one. I wish I could do. But I guess I've never really had that one person or one particular, you know, filmmaker or actor. Like, there's people that I aspire to, there's people that I respect, but there's no one necessarily that I'm like, oh yeah, you're my role model in life. Because,
not me.
But definitely not you. I guess I'm just never had one. You know, I've never really, like I said, I look up to people. I admire what they've done, but I don't necessarily like want to be them or.
So, do you want me to talk a little bit about my film?
I do, because I think it relates very well to media and kind of and mental health surrounding the media.
Yeah. So my film, my latest one, The Man Who Dreamt of Stars. I mean, it's basically, let's not beat it around the bush. It's basically Christopher Eccleston and his time on Doctor Who is basically what I made a pastiche of, or a parody of. And it's centered around this guy called William O'Brien, who was an old actor from the 80s and 90s and worked on an old sci-fi show called Inspector Wen. And like 20, 30 years later, there's this fan that approaches him in the pub, and he's really hostile towards the fan. And he hates that he's associated with the show. And then through the film, he gets more kind of redemption, and it comes to a kind of, you know, more. He likes the show more, I guess. But I guess a big part of that was based on Christopher Eccleston. Not that I think necessarily Christopher Eccleston's hostile, or would be if I met him, but I think it's really important how much role models play an important part in our life.
Yeah.
And with someone like Christopher Eccleston, it was 9 months of his life filming Doctor Who. That's all it was, 9 months. Whereas the amount that it's impacted my life, in terms of, it was the thing that inspired me to go to uni to do TV production, and I've met a lot of cool people through it, and being close to people like my own dad with it, is crazy really when you think about it, the influences it's had. So
it's interesting because you go to these conventions, of course, as a super fan, and when you meet Eccleston and that, it's really representative of your film, in the sense that he, I don't think, knows the impact that his work has had on your life and your childhood, your ideas and your visions, your influence for TV and radio, which is obviously what you've just mastered in, and that it's huge, isn't it? It's a mad how like people can have, and the thing is, they don't always have to have celebrity status. It can be a family member, it can be a friend,
teacher.
You know, you guys have had a lot of influence for the better, of course, on my own life and stuff. So it is interesting.
No, but I think it's you know, in terms of like with Christopher Eccleston, sometimes I do think, am I overselling it? Is he actually not as big a role model as I sometimes say he is? But I think he is in some regards. I think in some regards, you know, there's a lot of things, like I said before, that I wouldn't have done if I hadn't been a 4-year-old, 5-year-old watching him on Doctor Who. I might not have even been a Doctor Who fan if he hadn't captured my imagination at such a young age.
Well, the thing is, I think
what a different world that would be.
I think you're suggesting that because, of course, he's not. With all due respect, he's not huge. Most people, you say role model, and they'll say someone huge, won't they? Like DiCaprio or Cristiano Ronaldo, or someone with huge status. But he has had a massive influence on your life specifically. Yeah. So I think that is relevant.
So that's one benefit the media's played, I suppose, in my life. If we go back to the original question of what media has in terms of positives and negatives. So yeah, I guess, is there any negatives to the media in your own life?
What do you think, Sonny? Can you think of any negatives surrounding?
Well, negatives in general, really, in the media. It's like when it comes to, say, body image, that's where the media is not necessarily a good thing. If we're talking, again, this is not necessarily you guys or myself, but like, say for example, you watch like a certain film, maybe like a horror film, and a lot of people we may have like a warped mind and not understand that this is entertainment and it's not meant to be acted upon. There was a very sad true story over here in England where these two young kids killed another young kid because they watched the film Child's Play. It's a very famous story over here that happened in Liverpool. I forgot the name of the kids. I've heard about it.
I've heard the story.
Yeah, I don't mention the killers because they don't deserve to be mentioned. But it does show that. And
Venables,
again, it's,
wasn't it?
Venable.
Yeah.
To mention the names then. It's not necessarily the film's fault because it isn't. It's just a film, and
it shows the influence something can have, good or bad.
But it shows the influence that film can have to an impressionable young mind, and I guess that can be the negatives of media in general.
Yeah, definitely.
Because even with music, like all this like satanic rock music and stuff like that, again, I believe something with Marilyn Manson, Sandy Hook. There was some sort of relation there. Like the shooter was like a massive Marilyn Manson fan.
They blamed it on. They had blamed the shooter, didn't they?
Yeah. So yeah, it shows that media, even though it's so essential to our lives, and it can impact us, it can cheer us up, and help us feel better or help us understand our feelings, in a better sense. It can also have this detrimental and sometimes catastrophic effect.
It can be really dangerous, can't it? We talk about media, the influence it can have in terms of, don't want to get into it really, but some topics such as like extremism. Of course, there's a lot more surrounding kind of like incel culture now and stuff like that, and so there's a lot of obviously dark media and websites and that. I
guess YouTube to an extent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, to be honest, you could say the same with any platform. Obviously, the one that sticks out the most is Twitter because you're hearing all the time about.
It's unregulated mostly as well, isn't it?
It is. That's the thing. Yeah, and it's like you need balance really between cancel culture and what's just widely considered inappropriate. Do you know what I mean?
We mentioned social media then. TikTok, I think is. Okay, TikTok is great, it's entertaining, but it also, I just feel like it numbs our minds.
I think you're probably right, yeah.
As in, like, I wish I could delete it, but I feel like I can't delete it.
It's a very, very addictive app, and the reason being is because the algorithm, of course, is the more you like, the more it will sense your For You page as being things that you like, so yours is probably, all Doctor Who, isn't it?
A lot of it is, yeah.
Sonny's will be around, what is it, film and steak. I remember seeing your TikTok. Yeah, hey, everyone loves a good steak, mate. I don't blame you. And of course mine, probably all around football and Lionel Messi and stuff. So,
girls.
Excuse me. But no, to be fair, a lot of people's are, and I think that's another thing that's not great at all. It just, like you say, it warps your mind. It as Sonny said, it kind of.
Yeah, because like instead of like doing, say, something productive, you'll be on TikTok for like half an hour.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I know with a film it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours, but it's more engaging, and you'll actually remember the film. You'll remember the experience.
Yeah.
I could not tell you the last TikTok I watched.
No,
I could not tell you that
because we're scrolling through thousands. I bet honestly, if we could look back, it's a shame really that there's not that like like on a lot of apps, there's settings to monitor your time and stuff. And I'd love to see the amount of like TikToks I've scrolled through. It's ridiculous. Like the amount of time that we spend on these apps. I think we've said in a previous podcast, haven't we, about with social media especially. But yeah, I guess that's another negative impact of media is that it's extremely addictive, isn't it? That can be a good thing if it's something that we like you say take inspiration from. You know, you're probably in a sense addicted to Doctor Who, but that's not a negative. It's not negatively impacting your life or anyone else's. So.
I suppose it could be if it got to a certain extent. If it was all I was.
If it was like you weren't leaving the house or something because you wanted to watch every episode, then yeah, that would be. But it's not. It's encouraging and inspiring.
Yeah.
Yourself, so. And
it's also about, Doctor Who's one of those shows that the central concept really is embracing everyone, no matter who they are. It's not like it would be. If I was obsessed with a show that was like, I don't know, like a murder mystery or something, that could have more of a potentially could have more of a negative influence than something that. But then again, Doctor Who has loads of monsters and stuff, so who knows? I guess whatever you watch, there's ways of getting good influences and bad influences from it.
I'm curious. Are there any, new sources of media that we want to explore for a positive reason, of course? Because I mentioned football, Sonny, film, music, and that. Which of course is endless opportunity really, and obviously yourself with Doctor Who predominantly. Like, are there any? I guess I'll start with our guest, Sonny. Is there any kind of new things you're looking to venture into?
Well, I feel like again obviously with the expansion of the internet, which is it's always expanding. There's always new material out there to gather. But I feel like I said, TikTok is like a waste of time. It just is. There's like I may learn the odd thing there that I may retain. But I think something like Masterclass, which I think all of us have heard about, it's like the best people in whatever field it is, like whether that be a chef or a director or a writer or an author or whatever, and it's like an 8-hour course, online video course, and they just go through everything step by step. And I think that when it comes to education, media is very good.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, say like 20 years ago, if I said something, you could believe it's gospel because you don't have your phone on hand. Nowadays,
very true.
If someone says, "Oh, that's true," and I'm like a bit hesitant, I can check my phone and see whether it's true or false.
A great example of that is I remember when we were on a Cub or Scout camp together, and we were walking up a big hill, and you were like, "Oh, John Pertwee's still alive," and this was like 2009. I was like, "He's not alive," and we had no way of checking it because we had no technology to check it on.
When we were too young, and it was obviously we found out the truth that he was indeed brown bread. But again, the internet, and David Bowie said this back in the 90s. It is single-handedly the greatest invention and the worst invention we've ever had.
Yeah, it's true.
Because it's great, as in, now information is basically free, which is fantastic.
It's cost efficient, it's fast,
it's
brilliant.
But the negatives with that is all the, the cyberbullying and all that nonsense. It's just...
Yeah, definitely.
You've got to take the good with the bad, but unfortunately... the bad can be so strong that it can cause awful things to happen.
I think it is technology, the online world we live in with media now is kind of like the biggest blessing and curse. You look at it from a business perspective, how it can be used so efficiently for marketing, as a marketing tool and everything. But then, as you say, consequently,
and I think we tried to say this on one of the other takes, one of the 100,000 takes that we did.
Yeah, we've done a few takes this podcast.
Yeah.
But when it comes to music, like back in the day, you need a record label, you need this, you need that. Nowadays, you can self-release your own music.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
On Spotify, Amazon Music.
This podcast will be on Spotify.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason it's on here isn't because we've got a record deal or some sort of like big podcast.
Not yet. Wait till the Christmas banger comes out.
But because of that, you're not listening to this, or you're listening to your favourite artists who may never have garnered the attention that they have. Like, for example, Lil Nas X became famous because he used the internet to his advantage.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're now in a time in society where to become successful is it's not necessarily easy to get anything in life. You have to work hard, but it's more obtainable than, say, it was 30 years ago, where you really needed to know someone to get anywhere in the industry, whatever that may be.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
I think that's a really good point. That, like you say, is there's so many positives, but of course, inevitably with something so huge, you're always going to get negatives as well.
We mentioned it before, Twitter. Twitter is a cesspool of just pure vileness sometimes.
Yeah.
Because obviously after the Euros final last year, 3 players got tons of racial abuse on Twitter, and it's just awful. That shouldn't happen. Like, there should be moderators or whatever that prevent these sick people from posting these just horrendous tweets about 3 innocent people.
And you know what? I'll say, because of course it's the World Cup now, and England are doing brilliantly. Specifically, those players that missed the penalties have been the best players for England. And you know that sort of racial abuse could have impacted them to such a point, you know, that they might have never wanted to worn the shirt again.
Yeah. Like, why would you? Like, why
of
would
course,
you?
It's horrific, the abuse, the trolling, you know. But I think it was the strength of the nation. Again, another benefit of the internet is where people gather and show the support. It's like we made our first final since God knows when. I know obviously we won the World Cup '66, and that was, you know, years and years ago. Like this, you know, we talk about how people can rally together and actually influence, you know, people for the better and show morality and show support. That's a great thing, I think, especially with it as well. For all the trolls and you get and all the cyberbullies and this, that, the other, there's also a significant number of people with sense and morality that will challenge and fight against it.
Yeah.
This is somewhat different, but like, obviously, we all have a phone, we all have a smartphone or whatever. But with technology nowadays, we're able to create our own media. So if you want to be a filmmaker, you can make your own film on a phone quite easily. You can make a song on your phone. Everything is good, but I think something that you may not think about is the memories you can now create without thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, if you wanted to take a photograph, you had to know, you know, the decence of how to take a photograph. You know, and you'd have to wait for it to be developed and all that sort of stuff, like a proper film photograph.
Yeah, but it's like we're the first proper generation to have, well, certainly in my case, I don't know if your parents did the same, but like there's probably hundreds and hundreds of pictures and videos of me as a baby, and older generations don't have that. They have, if they're lucky, one photo of them as a baby.
Yeah, do you know? I was speaking to my mum actually about that. I was saying I've never really seen you as a you know, and it's one of them things where it's like, we're so lucky, aren't we, that we've been in this generation where we've had technology, where we've got these memories. We can look back. I've seen videos like, you know, like actual video footage of me like celebrating. I mean, it's Christmas time now, isn't it? So we could say that, like old Christmas videos or whatever. I think my parents would have loved to have seen that and reflected back, especially at the age they're at. You know, like looking back. So we are very lucky with technology.
I've only seen a handful of photos of my mum and dad when they were that age.
Yeah,
you know, very young. So.
It's a very good point, that, actually. Yeah, definitely. We are lucky in that sense, that we are able to look back.
Yeah. It's one benefit of the media. Another benefit of the media is that.
You know, and the efficiency, like our parents and their generation had to write letters constantly. There were no emails or anything like that. And
if you have an issue, like, you know, there's been times when I've left the house with my phone and not had to use it for anything, but if I do need it, it's always there. Drop of a hat, I suppose it's not so much media, it's more kind of being able to phone people, but...
I think it's the apps really that make us addictive to the phone, isn't it? TikTok and Instagram and all this. Like, if YouTube, you strip all that away, and what does the phone do? It rings and it texts.
Yeah.
And it is amazing if you think about it. We take it for granted so much. Is you can talk to someone on the other side of the world, like you're having a conversation, like we are in the car. It is crazy. I guess another positive. I was watching obviously Ricky Gervais on Netflix, big fan. And I saw he was talking about, obviously he's very much into animal. I just nearly said animal cruelty. He's not into that. He's very much against anti-animal cruelty. And he was talking about how, obviously, years ago it would have taken, well, years, no pun intended, to kind of influence change surrounding it in terms of getting a petition out there. Whereas now, I think he said something like you need 100,000 signatures. And, of course, with his level of fame and notoriety, he completely smashed that out of the park. And again, he's been able to like change laws surrounding animal cruelty and stuff like that because of it. So I guess again, there's another benefits in terms of petitions and kind of getting a.
So there's all these people on the internet, and we have about 3 listeners.
Well, you never know. You never know about in the future how
Sonny,
well
the episode with Sonny on might explode this whole podcast.
You know, I don't blame them. They hear my voice and they just swoon, don't they? They swoon.
They're only human. Yeah. So, anything else you want to say about media, or?
I think honestly, this is a good, good length for this in particular.
It's a bit of a shorter episode, but I think it's also a bit of a more, not maybe niche is the wrong word, but more of a specific subject to hone in on. So if you guys are happy, I'm happy. This has been a good podcast.
Yeah, surprisingly, after and you won't understand how
many
frustrating
takes?
this has been.
Is that why you've just asked me then, and I've said no, we're done now? It's like,
Yeah, Pete's
half an hour in, we're done.
Pete's like, screw it, we're done. Half an hour.
Well, unless you got anything else to say.
I have actually. Very quickly, I want to say thank you. Thank you to our special guest, Sonny.
Thank you very much for having
for
me.
putting up with us for as long as you have today. Of
It's
course,
always nice to have a guest on, though, isn't it?
absolutely, yeah, no. Of course, Pete, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And
Can't say the same.
Oh, well,
I'm joking.
what a lovely note to end it on. Man up, man down, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and check out Man Who Jumped to Stars, which we spoke about. Great film.
That's what it was all about, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was just
just
promoting the film. It was
This
just
is a 30-minute advert for the Man Who Jumped to Stars.
Yeah.
You're
Actually-
fucking welcome, people.
Actually, it was Sonny who chose the topic today, so thank you, Sonny, for choosing the topic.
Yes, thank you very
Because
much.
when we've-
which is leading to a self-promotion of your own.
when we've chosen topics in the past, when we did education and mental health, obviously there was kind of some reason why we chose those people on those podcasts, but on the whole, it was kind of random.
Yeah.
But with this one, you were really passionate about this topic, and we did it. So yeah, thank you for choosing that. Yeah. So join us next week when we'll be doing something else. I say that every week, but yeah, we'll be doing something. Not quite sure what yet, but yeah. And it's getting close to Christmas, so we've got a few things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming
Maybe we'll do something festive themed. You never know.
Maybe.
Surrounded. Always a pleasure,
Thank you.
gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.